Welcome back to the FTN NFL Draft Team Preview Series. I'm your host, Mike Randle, Chief Content Officer here at FTN. You can follow me on Twitter at RandleRandon. Today, we travel to Seattle. Folks, we are only 4 days away from the NFL Draft on Thursday, which I still think should be a national holiday. But today, we talk Seattle Seahawks, and the only person to bring here in it is Rob Staton. He's the manager of BBC Sheffield Sport, but he also writes the Seahawks Draft blog. No one is tied in more to the Seahawks. Does an outstanding job. NFL on 5 Live. Follow him at Rob Staton, STATON. He joins us for a few minutes here to preview the Seahawks. Rob, thank you so much. I know you're busy. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks, Mike. Thank you for that nice introduction, and a pleasure to be here.
So, Rob, listen, I have seen you on VSiN, on so many other shows. Your insight is incredible. I actually want to start with the top of the draft. Obviously, we think it's Bryce Young, but I do want to get your thoughts here on the Houston Texans at number 2, because I think that's a domino effect that would lead into what Seattle is going to do. So, what are your thoughts here? I don't see them passing on a quarterback. I don't at this point, just because I think Indianapolis would have one. Jacksonville has Trevor Lawrence. But what say you here, what you're hearing, and what you think will happen with the number 2 pick overall on Thursday?
Well, I don't know if Nick Caserio is a cigar smoker or not, but I've kind of got this mental image of him laying back in a chair and puffing on a huge cigar while the whole world speculates, is it going to be Will Levis? Is it going to be Will Anderson? Is it going to be Tyree Wilson? I think he's loving this. Because if you are one of those teams who fancies Will Levis, and a lot of people think that the Indianapolis Colts, and I'm one of them, have settled on Levis as their quarterback, they're probably sat there thinking, hang on a minute, division rival's going to take our guy. And, all of a sudden the betting market said that Will Levis was going to be number 2. It wouldn't surprise me if someone with close connections to the Houston Texans maybe had a little dabble on that just to try and shift those markets. And I just wonder whether or not they are so intent on trading down that there's just a lot of smoke screens going on and all of this stuff. I do believe in the people who are saying, hey, do you know what? CJ Stroud's agent is the same as Deshaun Watson's agent, and maybe there's a bit of bad blood there. True story. That same agent rang me up once and complained about an article that I'd written about
Interesting.
Earl Thomas. I said that Earl Thomas was making a mistake holding out, and he got in touch. And I was really surprised because I thought it was a perfectly fair and acceptable article. So I can well imagine that maybe, I don't know him personally, but he might butt heads with people. And it was a very difficult divorce with Deshaun Watson, very controversial. So I don't think they're going to go with Stroud. I can well imagine why D'Amico Ryans would want Will Anderson. But I wouldn't rule out Will Levis. I'm a big Will Levis guy. I know a lot of people trending to hate on Will, but I've interviewed him. I've spoken to people at Kentucky about him. I've spoken to Chris Rodriguez about him. I think he's a perfect guy to bring into your franchise and develop.
All right, well, let's turn to Seattle now. 9-8 last year, real surprise. And Rob, I have to tell you, I think Pete Carroll should have been coach of the year. I mean, people were giving them 4 wins. That's what they thought coming in. Geno Smith, somebody who had been discarded, comes to Seattle, plays incredibly well. The team is competitive. They're in the playoffs here. So where do you think they're going here at their first-round pick? A lot of questions. Geno's contract, could they back it up? Are they making a run? Do they think they could actually continue to go further in the playoffs? What are you hearing? I know you've had ties in. You've listened to some things from former players and Richard Sherman, things like that. What do you think here Seattle's doing with that first overall pick in the first round? I
think they'd love to have Will Anderson. I think if there was any chance of Will Anderson lasting to number 5, I think they would take him. He fits every single character box they're looking for. There's a big emphasis on character and culture in Seattle. And I think that they would take him at number 5 and be very happy about that. If he goes 2nd overall or 3rd overall to Arizona, they're not going to be able to do that. Now, there's been a talk from Richard Sherman in his podcast that they might be reverting back to the 4-3 scheme or the 4-3 concepts that Pete Carroll used to use. It was like a 4-3 under and stuff like that. If that happens, then it brings Tyree Wilson into play. But I think the foot injury is going to concern some teams. And the Seahawks have had a bit of a bad history with slightly older Big 12 defenders taken in the first round over the last few years. So I'm not sure they'll go that direction again. I don't think they're going to take Jalen Carter. So I think if Will Anderson is gone, my tip would be that they're going to pivot to Anthony Richardson. It's not the defensive line, which a lot of people think they're going to go for, and I think they'd be interested in improving their pass rush. But Richardson screams Seahawks. He is so physically gifted. He's exactly the type of physical talent that Pete Carroll loves to get his hands on and mold. John Schneider, the GM, is traits driven. And there hasn't been a quarterback probably ever that has got the traits of Anthony Richardson. So it's the perfect situation with Geno there for another year or two for Richardson to come in and learn. I think it'd be a great spot for him and a great spot for the Seahawks if Will Anderson is gone.
Now, the Seahawks here, Rob, have several picks. I mean, they have another pick in the first round. They have a couple picks in the second round as well. So thoughts here on what Seattle could do to fortify this team. Again, they were in the playoffs. They were playing very well last year. So this is a team that could absolutely make a run. Solid running back, great receiving core. What are you thinking here? Made the big trade with Noah Fant, obviously, last year. What are you thinking they're targeting here in future picks as well? Sort of an overall view of what you think Seattle's draft plan will be.
Well, I think it's a good question to ask, because I think a lot of people just think Seattle just have number 5. And if you don't address every need with number 5, then that's it. So if they don't take a defensive lineman at 5, crisis. Well, they can get one at 20. They could easily come back and take a Will McDonald who fits, as their sort of Leo edge rusher that Carroll has always liked. If they are going back to 4-3, Miles Murphy would be a good fit if he's there at number 20. Lucas Van Ness fits that sort of 4-man front as well. He could be an option there. I think Kalijah Kancey is an intriguing player, but his arm length is a bit of an issue there. So, no, I think if they went Richardson first pick, it's very likely that I would think that number 20 would be a defensive lineman. I think center is going to be a big option. They are going to draft a center with one of these first 4 picks, whether it's John Michael Schmitz, whether it is Tibbin, or whether it is Whiteblad. They're going to take one of these guys with one of these high picks, and they are going to draft a center. And then I think perhaps with the 2 other early picks, best player available. John Schneider's reiterated that's what they did last year. What does the talent suggest? And hey, look, if a Michael Mayer's there at 20, might they take him? It's not the biggest need, but planning ahead, yeah, they might take him. What if, I don't know, Brian Branch, for example, if they really like him to get another versatile defensive back into the team, would they go that direction? If there's a cornerback that they really like, they don't take cornerbacks early, but if there's just somebody who grades so highly for them in those first 2 rounds, could they go in that direction? Yes, they could. Guards as well. Things like that. Weapons at wide receiver. I think it's going to be a big best player available draft. There's a lot of mocks have them going defense and receiver. I would be more thinking best player available and who fits the Seahawks profile. Have a good think about that.
Yeah, that's interesting. I have them in my mock that I put. I have one more coming out on Wednesday. I had them go defense. Of course, you mentioned Richardson. Now that's a very intriguing possibility. And then going with Schmitz here with the second pick, goes sort of offense, defensive line. What do you think about that? I know that they took him out to dinner. Do you read into that stuff? Could that be misdirection, obviously, when you leak that you had an interest, had a dinner to see? Do you think it's something where if you really like a player, you're going to keep it under wraps? Or in your experience, what have you seen with these leaks that come out, these rumors about whining and dining some of these prospects?
Some of them are very indicative. And the fact that they sent Steve Hutchinson, the Hall of Fame guard who now works for the Seahawks, they sent Steve Hutchinson to go and work out Schmitz, and they sent him to go and work out Joe Tippmann as well. So they've been and got hands-on with these guys, and they've sent Hutch to go and do that. You ain't sending Steve Hutchinson on a wasted journey. Good luck telling Steve Hutchinson, can you just go and waste your time for a couple of days, please? You wouldn't look the man in the eye and say that. So they've got genuine interest, and they both fit what the Seahawks are looking for with this scheme. Agility testing is key. Short shuttle times. I think Michael Schmitz is a 4.56 when he did his at the combine. Tippmann hasn't done one, but on Bruce Feldman's freak list, he was recorded as a 4.31, which is unbelievable for a man his size. No wonder that they're interested in him. And Luke Weiper's the other one. He ran a 4.53. That's one of the main reasons why I think these 3 in particular are guys to keep an eye on. They have to improve the interior of their offensive line. A lot of people think it'll be malpractice if they don't, and I tend to agree with them. So if they do go defense with that first pick, let's say that Will Anderson is there at number 5 for whatever reason, or let's say they take Tyree Wilson or something like that, then yeah, I could see them very much at 20, or maybe after a short, small trade down into the mid-20s, taking John Michael Schmitz or Joe Tippmann.
All right, listen, Rob, this has been amazing. I want to get you out of here. I know you're busy. You're going on in an hour, of course. Last question. If they don't take a quarterback with that first pick, do you think that there is a pressure for them to go for a Hendon Hooker or something like that? Or do you think there is a path here where they could be comfortable with Geno this year and say, you know what, we're going for it. Let's bolster our team. We have a chance in this division to make some moves here and just move forward. Arizona, of course, Kyler Murray's going to be injured. So there is a path for them to be very competitive. Pete Carroll does an amazing job. Do you think if they pass on the quarterback, that's something they could address later? Or do you think there is an avenue where they could say, you know what, we'll worry about it down the line next year and beyond and just go with Geno?
I think it's an option. I think that Hooker at 37, if he was still there, could be an option. I don't think the Seahawks would take him at 20. Okay. And there's people out there saying he's going to go in the first half of the first round. So if that happens, I mean, they're not going to trade up for him. So if he's still there in the early second round, I think it's a possibility. Sort of the player, it doesn't remind me of Andy Dalton, but I think the value is as Andy Dalton. Andy Dalton was an early second round pick. Derek Carr was an early second round pick. I think Hendon Hooker deserves to be in that range. I think a team's going to trade back into the first round for him, which would probably take him off the board. And in that instance, the Seahawks probably aren't going to go chasing Hendon Hooker. But if he was there for them and they felt he's the highest graded player on our board, they could take him, they could sit him behind Geno and Drew Lock, get him back in a year's time, throw him into the competition. He's got the character they like, the arm strength, the big hands that John Schneider likes. Mm-hmm. It would make some sense, but there's no pressure there. And the thing that we have to remember here is everyone's going crazy about these top two quarterbacks who are going to be in the draft next year. Here's something else to remember. The entire middle class of the 2023 quarterback class returns to school. It's driving teams crazy because there's nobody there for like rounds. There's like DTR and that's it. Like there's nobody in rounds 2, 3, 4, 5. That typically you could take a chance on a quarterback. They all went back to school or they transferred to another team. So there's a whole bunch of players like Michael Penix Jr. is a good example who could have been like a second round pick. Yep. He ain't going to be there. Now, he might not be a first round pick, but next year, is he going to be there in round 2? Devin Leary's gone to Kentucky to replace Will Levis. He's going to be working with Liam Cohen. How's he going to boost his stock in that offense, playing in the pro-style offense? So there's a lot of players. It's not just the top 2. There are a whole bunch, I'd say as many as 10 quarterbacks who've gone back, who could easily have a good year, boost their stock, add to the numbers. So no pressure from the Seahawks. If Hooker's not there to them, they ain't going to go chasing that, I don't think.
Amazing job as always, folks. No one gives you more information than Rob Staton here in 10 minutes. Make sure you follow him on Twitter at Rob Staton, Staton, writer for the Seahawks Draft Blog, does amazing work, NFL on 5 Live, and of course, BBC Sheffield Sport manager as well. Rob, thank you so much for viewing us. We appreciate it. We know you're busy. We can't wait. Start celebrating on Thursday and our questions start getting answered. Thanks for a few moments.
Anytime, Mike. My pleasure.